and I'm reading my story, Stolen Cargo. It was published this spring by Witty Bard Publishing in their steampunk anthology of airships and automatons, Tales of Steam and Science. And I'm just gonna get right to it because I'm reading the whole thing. Althea stepped up to the helium balloon tethered above the airship and suppressed its shudder. Her hand trembled as she brought the champagne glass to her lips. She downed it. She exchanged the empty glass for a fresh one off a server's tray and assembled a smile over her clenched teeth. She turned as her husband's voice rang out over the crowd from large speaker boxes spaced around the deck. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," said Hastings Cartwright. "Thank you all for joining us on this special occasion. Airships are the ideal form of travel." He laughed. Though I'll admit I might be a little biased as London's top producer of them. Laughter enveloped Althea. It takes dozens of highly trained men working together in perfect synchronicity to successfully drive an airship, and a single misstep can lead to disaster. But not anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you have the pleasure of experiencing the flight of the world's first automaton airship. He paused for effect. Althea's eyes roamed over the guests. Most were murmuring to each other in excitement or awe. A man quirked one red eyebrow. He wore a well-made business suit, but didn't quite blend in with the rest of the socialites. His eyes met hers, and Althea recognized him as her husband's competitor, Cedric Donnelly. She turned her attention back to her husband. "Thanks to the tireless work of Dr. Oswell Baxter," he pointed to a short, gray-haired man at the front of the crowd, "this airship is completely voice-controlled, tuned into its captain, and commands can be given from any position on the ship, simply by addressing the ship itself." Hastings paused. "Garrett, give us a tour of London." Althea's heart stopped. Garrett? Her breath came in shallow gasps. She gulped back the rest of her champagne while fighting back tears of grief and anger. A hum rose from the bowels of the ship. Ropes detached themselves from their moors and slithered back into the ship, coiling themselves away. The ramp raised itself and slid underneath the deck. Althea's stomach lurched as the airship rose into the air. She reached for the railing and clutched it so hard her fingers went numb. "Welcome to the future." Her husband's voice was distant behind the wall of cheers. She jumped when he kissed her cheek. "Smile, darling," he whispered in her ear. "This is our big day, a time to celebrate." Rage pushed back her terror. She focused on his face. "Celebrate? Should I celebrate how you abuse the memory of our son?" "Hush. I did this in his honor, to avoid such tragic accidents from happening to someone else. We are creating a better world. A world in which our son would have no place." "I wouldn't be so sure about that, darling." Althea frowned at him. "Come with me. I have something to show you that I think might change your mind about all of this." Althea's pounding heart descended from her throat as her husband led her down into the ship. Now it churned in her stomach instead of choking her. She focused on Hastings' heels. From the corner of her eyes, she glimpsed opulent dining rooms, lounges, and guest quarters. The lower they descended, the less finished the spaces were. "We're a little behind schedule," he said. "Nothing major, just the finishing touches, and nothing that needed to delay our demonstration." She made no comment. The third floor down was closed off by a large steel door. The floor under them vibrated, and Althea could hear the loud hum and whir of machines. Hastings pulled a ring of keys from his pocket and unlocked the door. Lights turned on automatically as he led her down a hallway and into a large room. Rows of large jars sat on long tables with wires connecting them to turning gears or dials. Her feet slowed as she passed the first set of jars. She peered into one on a table labeled climate control. When her mind finally made sense of the gray mass floating inside, bile rose in her throat. She had to bend over and breathe carefully to keep from throwing up her champagne. Brains. Each jar contained a brain floating in liquid. Come on, there's more. Althea looked up at her husband. He was beaming at her with pride. Did he not understand how horrifying this was? She followed him, trying very hard not to look at or think about the brains and to keep her breathing slow and steady. Hastings led her to the far end of the room. A single jar sat on a large station cluttered with gauges and wires. A gramophone protruded from the station with a speaker box beside it. Isn't it beautiful? It's an abomination. Would you say that to your son? Althea gaped at him. Hastings turned towards the gramophone. Say hello to your mother, Garrett. A hollow, mechanical voice emitted from the speaker on the station. Hello, Mother. You named this thing after our son? Hastings smiled condescendingly. No, darling. He pointed to the brain on the station. This is our son. That's impossible. Althea shook her head as tears rolled down her cheeks. Our son is dead. No, don't you see? I saved our son. I saved all these people. He gestured to the other brains in the room. They were dying. I gave them life, purpose. They would have been rotting in the ground. Althea shivered. She felt empty. How? Garrett was dying. I was able to save him, his brain, before he died. Her tears stopped. You told me he died in the hospital. You lied to me? What if he could have recovered? You killed our son! She beat on his large chest with her fists. Hastings did not try to stop her. After a moment, he gently reached his arms around her, hushing her. Althea pushed him back. No, don't touch me! He scowled down at her. Take a few moments to speak with Garrett. You'll see. The chances of him recovering were almost non-existent. The doctors made that clear. This is what he wanted. Ask him. But don't take too long. We have guests to entertain upstairs. Tidy yourself up and join us before they start to worry. He kissed her cheek and walked down the long hall. Althea glared after him. When he was gone, she turned to the station. The sight of the brain nauseated her. She focused instead on the gramophone and the speaker.
On the sky of heaven.